Hello, I'm Larry Taylor, ACSI President and CEO. As you're making plans for year-end giving, I want to encourage you to prayerfully consider ACSI. The Association of Christian Schools International is serving more than 25,000 schools in 108 countries, educating more than 5.5 million students across our 7 global divisions and 17 offices. With God's Word and prayer as our bedrock, our mission since 1978 has never been so relevant. ACSI exists to strengthen Christian schools and equip Christian educators worldwide as they prepare students academically and inspire them to become devoted followers of Jesus Christ. Our foundational pillars of advancing, advocating for, and providing access to Christ-centered education remain steadfast, with more professional development opportunities, legal consultation to protect religious liberties, and innovative ways to deliver academic learning like never before. Through Vision 2030, we're embarking on initiatives that will revolutionize how we do ministry around the world with multilingual, multi-currency global infrastructure, biblically based AI products for the Christian education market, and dynamic professional development. God is on the move, and we're joining Him where He is leading us. Will you join us? Give now at acsi.org/donate. We are stronger with you.
Transform your Christian school culture through the Flourishing Journey with Dr. Edward Bunn, ACSI Professional Development Director.
Welcome to the Flourishing Journey podcast. I'm Dr. Edward Bunn, and I will serve as your travel guide throughout this podcast series. We'll explore strategies and principles for building a school culture that truly thrives. Each month, we'll take a brief pit stop centering around a relevant, flourishing construct as together we journey into the world of ideas, research, and practice. Well, hello, flourishing practitioners, and welcome to the closing episode around the flourishing domain of expertise and resources. You know, an area of this domain that is critical to our success is hiring the right people for the mission. The Vanderbloemen team asserts this: you can put a healthy heart into a healthy body, and if the tissue doesn't match, it's a bad ending for everyone. Filling open roles on our teams in our schools is just like that. So with this in mind, it's an honor to have with us today William Vanderbloemen. William has combined over 15 years of ministry experience as a senior pastor with the best practices of executive search to provide faith-based organizations a unique offering, a deep understanding of local church and theology with the very best knowledge and practices of professional executive search. William also is the CEO and founder of Vanderbloemen. So it's such a joy, William, to have you today. So welcome to the Flourishing Podcast.
Thanks, Edward. Always good to talk to a fellow North Carolinian.
Awesome. And we probably have some good stories to tell. Well,
we're probably also related somehow, but
you never know. Well, you got a cool name. That's, I'd switch over to your name any day. Well, let's get into this. I'm excited about the content, excited about what you bring to the table, but, I love trends. What are we seeing? What are we noticing? And so what trends have you noticed in the needs of what we would say of value-based organizations today? And maybe how does Vanderbloemen adapt to support those needs? So let's talk about these trends that you're uncovering.
Yeah, well, there's several, and boy, we could go a long time on this topic. But Edward, I'd say there are two that come to mind. Now, one is, as long as I've been doing this, so 16 and a half years now, I've been doing executive search, the single most prevalent trend that's happened year over year, and it started with the Great Recession back in 2008, organizations are spending more money on fewer staff people. I'll say it again, more money on fewer staff people. I think organizations back in 2008, everything was scarce. It was the worst our economy ever had been since the Great Depression. It's also the very time I decided to start a company, but that's a different podcast. But I think people had said, how do we get more done with less? And the counterintuitive finding that businesses figured out was if you spend more on the right leader, you'll get way more than what the money you put in, and way more than hiring 3 or 4 specialists to support parts and pieces that that might otherwise have been staffed that way. So the organizations are spending more money on fewer people. Now, the workplace culture question, this is a huge issue. I mean, maybe even more so in Christian higher education in colleges, where you've got the culture wars that are going on, out in the public, but pieces of that are hitting the Christian education sphere, and organizations had to figure out how are we going to do this dance. And what I've seen is a bifurcation, and it's not a right or wrong. It's just a bifurcation. There's some schools that have said, we're going to be that place that your child can come get a break from the, whatever political correctness or however you want to fill in we're the sanctuary for that. And we're going to push hard toward that. And then you've got other, equally valuable schools that are saying, well, how do we do this dance where we're acknowledging that some people are living a little bit differently, but we're not going off the deep end. And that is some serious murky water. But until those schools come down, I don't think you can dodge the question. I think you have to kind of figure it out. And until schools figure that out, I think they're going to be flailing a little bit in terms of how do we recruit, who do we recruit, what families the perfect persona for us, and what families maybe are not the best fit for us.
That's excellent. I love the, how do we recruit? Who do we recruit? And just the leaning into that trend of, spending more money to get the right person. That's so critical. You know this well because you do this day in and day out. But as Christian school leaders, as board chairs, and boards hiring their one employee, that head of school, these trends are just should be strongly considered. So thanks for sharing that.
And even more than that, Edward,
Yeah.
I'd say more than just the head of school. Once you have a head of school, nobody except Jesus is perfect in every way, and they killed Jesus. So, but a head of school has a strength zone. Like some heads of school, some schools want an academic head of school, right? We want the scholar, right? Some want the fundraiser, right? Some want the people person that the parents all love, and nobody hits all 3 of those parts of the triangle equally.
Oh, I love that.
So when you hire that head of school, and you've gone ahead and spent a little bit more money getting the right one, think about which legs of that triangle, from scholar to fundraiser to community, which legs of that are a little weaker, and how do you then go invest some money in a person that can complement your new head of school?
I love that, and that's building the team in a healthy way, and that actually kind of leads into our second question, William. In your experience, what are some of the common mistakes that organizations make when building out their teams, and how does Vanderbloemen help companies, churches, ministries, nonprofits avoid those pitfalls?
Well, I'll give you a short, pithy answer that you can quote, tweet, whatever, and then a little bit longer one. The single biggest mistake ever in hiring and firing is that people tend to hire too quickly and they fire too slowly. And, if you're sitting there saying William Jesus never fired anybody, we don't talk about that. Or he did fire the fig tree for not producing fruit, but that, again, different podcast. Let's say a different way. People are too fast with their hellos and too long with their goodbyes.
That's good.
That's number one mistake I see. Now, what's the reason behind that? Why does everybody rush into hiring? You would think people know this is the most valuable thing we're going to do. Our people are our most valuable asset. Every head of school will say that, right? So why rush hiring? Here's what I think after studying this for, 16 plus years. Hiring is a venture into the unknown.
Yes.
Now, what do I mean by that? Fortunately, I've got scholars listening, so they're asking good, heady questions. They don't want to just move on. Hiring is a venture into the unknown. When you add someone to the team, it will change your team culture. It will change your atmosphere. It will change everything. And if you've hired the wrong person before, it takes a long time to undo that mistake, right? So why are we rushing? because it's unknown. See, I think there are just a handful of primal human fears. Okay. And maybe top of the list is fear of the unknown. And people said, no, it's fear of public speaking. It's fear. No. I still have a teenager that wants a light on in the hallway. We don't like what we don't know. It's just built into us. When you get to hiring and you know you're going to mess with your team culture just by hiring, we hate all that unknown, and we tend to gravitate towards something that feels like something we know. Oh, my buddy Edward just called me. There's this great candidate we need to jump on right now before he gets hired away by blah, 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 blah. You know, and you move into, oh, I know them because Edward recommended them. Well, Edward just said they're a good guy, not necessarily good for your school, right?
Good.
So I think we tend to get word of mouth, or somebody I went to school with, or somebody who was on my staff in a previous place, which many times works and many times doesn't. I think people want so badly to get out of that unknown, or they wait forever on the right candidate and then their back's against the wall, that they end up hiring quickly. And, you know, my friend Dave Ramsey, it takes, I don't know if your listeners know Dave, but it takes forever to get hired into his place. They interview so, I mean, I said to him one time, we were doing a search for him, Dave, I think I could get somebody into the CIA quicker than we can get him into your. And he laughed and he said this, and this is important, Edward. This is important for me. Hiring too quickly. He said, William, even a donkey can act like a thoroughbred through 3 interviews.
That's good.
And I thought that is good advice. So one piece of advice: longer hellos, shorter goodbyes. And we can talk about the goodbyes on another podcast.
Yeah, that's great. You know, I had a friend and mentor say one time around this same topic. He said, you know, you hire hard so you can manage soft. In other words, you know, there's a little more challenge up front, but it pays off. It pays dividends on the backside. So that's excellent. And you actually, you know, as you were answering that, kind of walked us into culture. You know, just because they're a good person, great leader, it doesn't mean they fit the culture of the organization of which is hiring for certain positions. And so that kind of leans into a third question I want to ask, and I'm very excited about. Maybe what are some of those early warning signs that a workplace culture is actually becoming unhealthy?
Yeah. Well, we wondered that. I knew we were going to talk about this, but so I'll hold up if the video captures it.
Yeah.
Called Culture Wins, where we looked at 150 different organizations that were winning best places to work. And this included churches, nonprofits, for-profits, faith-based, not faith-based. And what we found was there are really 2 layers to having an amazing culture. The first is just get healthy. Nothing fancy, just get healthy. And we noticed 8 key areas of cultural health that were present in all of these organizations. So we actually built an assessment. I think you can take a free version and then there's a paid one for teams. If you go to the culture tool, TOOL, theculturetool.com, you'll see it. And I think maybe there are 5,000 Christian organizations that have been through that now. And it'll just show you, like, nobody's perfect. Here are the 8 key areas. Here's what you're doing really well. Here's what needs a little work. And you're testing against people that are running values-based organizations like yours. So there is some semblance of, we really ought to be nice to each other, love your neighbor as yourself. Even within that context, how are you doing? And that'll give you a pretty clear read. Then, you know, if you want to hire somebody that fits that culture, I think you've got to take the second step. Okay, we're healthy, or we're working on healthy. What is particular about our culture? This healthy is true for all cultures, but like, what is particular about our school, right? How is it different than all the other schools around us? How do we behave? And here's a phrase. I don't know if I came up with it or not, but I've not heard it before. If your vision for your school is, here's what God wants us to get done, then your workplace culture is, here's how we're going to behave while we're getting that done. And that's not just don't lie, cheat, steal, 10 commandments behavior. That's like, how do we function? Like our office, we are crazy about responsiveness. I mean, probably we ought to all be in therapy, you know, but it is pretty instant. And if we brought somebody in here that was like taking a day or two to get back to people, they'd be miserable. It's
Right.
not, oh, they're not good enough to work here. They'd just be miserable. And it's back to that quote that you mentioned at the beginning. It's just not a tissue match.
Yeah.
And when the tissue doesn't match, nobody's happy. And usually flourishing stops and tissue rejection sets in. So I would say get healthy first, then start to work on what are our ways that we behave while we're achieving God's mission. And that'll give you a grid for interviewing just to see if people naturally behave that way. Edward, I got a lot to learn. And I'll tell you right at the top of the list, I don't know how to teach cultural fit. It either
Oh, that's
fits or it
good.
doesn't.
Right. That's excellent. You gave us a great resource to consider. I love that. And one of the bigger things, in getting to just interact with your company a little bit in preparation for this podcast and looking at some of your resources and all that. You know what I love is just the holistic approach to culture, to hiring. It's not, there's not a singular data point or just a handful of data points. You really do this in a holistic way. And I think if we're going to get it right, if we're going to be healthy, like you described, then it's going to require, any organization to use a holistic view of all of this culture, hiring, fit, and so forth. Listen,
I tell
go
you,
ahead.
Edward, we really think you guys are on the front rows of the movement to storm the gates of hell. You guys are in the front. We're in the cheap seats cheering you on, right? But from where I sit, if you're on those front lines, there are really only two lids that keep you from going faster and farther. One of them is money. Resource is always a challenge. But I think even more than that, if you've got people problems, those slow you down. So our little lane in the helping the church move farther and faster is if we can solve people problems for people on the front lines, then we've done our job. And that's whether that's hiring or culture or compensation, like people issues. And it is a joy to get to go into so many of your schools and see how you're forming the next generation of the church. It's just, you couldn't be more frontline than that. And I think, just want to thank everybody listening for what you're doing every day. It's making a difference.
I appreciate that encouragement for sure. And thank you for what you do as well, you and your company, because we say this jokingly sometimes, people are going to people. And so how do we navigate it? How do we navigate that? So, hey, listen, it's been a joy to be with you today. I just want to thank you personally, William, for journeying with us around the flourishing construct of quality hiring and workplace culture, sharing your ideas and some of your strategies and takeaways. It's been a great little mini podcast today. Thanks, William.
Thanks, Edward. I really appreciate you letting me come on.
Yeah, absolutely. And so those that are viewing today, join us for the next episode of the Flourishing Journey podcast. We'll be premiering our next one at the beginning of 2025. We'll see you soon.
The Flourishing Journey is a presentation of the Association of Christian Schools International. Foster a flourishing school culture by visiting acsi.org/flourishing.